Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Steve again, Harmless Rebel. Time for another, mostly metal, I guess, update. Um, just kind of jump into it. Pick these up. Actually, these just came in a few days ago. I was on Amazon looking for something else, and this popped up in the ad at the bottom. I didn't know that these had gotten repressed, so I went ahead and ordered them. The first one is the debut EP from British Thrashers. This is Moshkenstein from Acid Rain. If you haven't checked these guys out, the UK is not really known for their thrash bands. These guys are great, especially the debut. I don't know if they call this an EP or a mini LP. Um, Either way, let's see. I think it sits right at 30 minutes, maybe a little bit less. Killer album, though. Highly recommend checking this one out. They did this one on, I think it's on blue vinyl. Yeah. So this one is on blue vinyl. Uh, I also ordered their debut full length. It hasn't come in yet, though. It was from a different seller, and that one was coming from across the country, whereas this one was coming from Florida. So this one got here in a couple of days. But I also got their second and their last full length from the '80s, or from the original lineup. I shouldn't say from the '80s because this one came out in 1990. But this is Obnoxious. This is my least favorite of the Acid Rain releases. It's still a really good album. The first two, though, the EP and their debut, I absolutely loved. This one, they changed it up a little bit. Not too much, but when you read about this, there's very mixed reviews. A lot of people hate this album. It's called Obnoxious. A lot of people talked about how obnoxious this album cover is. I didn't like it when I was first introduced to this a few years ago, but I don't know. It doesn't really bother me now. And they matched this one up pretty well and did the pink vinyl with a blue label on this side there. So really cool. Again, this is my least favorite of the Acid Rain releases, but it's still pretty good. Still worth having, especially if you're a fan of thrash. But I would not start with this one. I would start with Moshkenstein for sure. That's my favorite release from the band. They also just got back together recently and put out a new album, I believe, last year. And I haven't checked that one out yet. That one will be on my short list to pick up pretty soon here. Next up, I don't remember. Maybe I got this one through Music Record Shop. I have a feeling that's where I got it from. I've had this one for 5 or 6 months, and I'm about to put this one up, frame this, and put it up on the wall. And just wanted to spin it a couple times before I did that. But this is just a classic album from the '90s. This was a favorite of mine. I played this probably 1,000 times in the '90s. But this is Meantime from Helmet. I got a signed copy, and when I saw this pop up, I couldn't hit the buy button fast enough. He only got one copy of this, and now that I think about it, it was Music Record Shop. But just an all-time classic. Helmet, is one of those bands. They didn't sound like anybody else. It was a very cool style of punk meets New York hardcore. It was just kind of their own thing, and I always loved it. I love this album. I love Betty. The rest of their stuff is hit or miss. They have songs I like. There was just something about about Meantime and Betty that, man, I could not get enough of these. I think I've talked about this before. When I was shortly after high school, I bought my first motorcycle, and I had the Helmet sticker on my helmet. Not only because I liked the band, but because as a stoned 18-year-old, I just thought that was the coolest thing to have Helmet on your helmet. Just stupid stuff that we entertain ourselves with. Next up, finally added this one to the collection. Oops, I don't want those to fall. This is the last of the Mark Tornillo albums that I was missing from Accept on vinyl, The Rise of Chaos. This one was 2017 when it came out. This one blew right past me. I don't know how I missed the release of this. Blind Rage, I believe, was my number one for the year it came out. 2015, maybe. If it was not my number one, it was my number one or two. I absolutely love that album. I played it nonstop. I met the band in Brazil on that tour. I got a picture on the wall there with them. That album was phenomenal. So when I heard this maybe a year ago, when I finally ran across it, and it was one of those things, I ran across a copy of the CD in the store, and I was shocked to see it because, like I said, I had never seen the album before. Got it home. I was pretty disappointed with it. And it's not that it was a bad album. It's more the fact that Blind Rage was such a good album. This is a good album. It's not great. I would say it's the weakest of the Mark Tornillo era Accept albums. But that being said, it's still a really good album, and I really enjoyed it. I actually, right before I did this video, the first disc is on my record player right now. And this one is on Orange and Blue. What do they call it? Orange and Blue swirl vinyl. Not much of a swirl, but, you know, that's like the splatters. A lot of them aren't really much of a splatter. Next up, I bought this one 7 or 8 months ago just because the vinyl was so clean. I would love to find a nicer jacket for this, but man, this is the best sounding version or pressing of this album that I have, and I've got 3 or 4, including a US white label promo. This one blows it away. This is the German pressing of Sad Wings of Destiny on Gull Records. This is an original. Sounds amazing. I played this the last few days 3 or 4 times. I love this album to start with, but it's just such a good pressing. Highly recommend grabbing a copy of this if you run across it. And if anybody has a really nice cover of a German pressing and a shitty record, shoot me a message. Maybe we can work something out, because I would like to get a nice cover for that. Next up, I actually bought this for my daughter, but I thought I'd give it a spin. She heard one of the songs and really liked it. It's a band that me and my wife both kind of like. It was their second album, but their first major label release was huge in the 90s. We played it quite a bit in our car. My wife isn't into heavy music, but that was one of the heavier songs or albums that she really dug. But it's The Bitter Truth from Evanescence. So like I said, I bought this for my daughter, but I went ahead and gave it a spin. It's not as good as their 1 or 2 big albums from the 90s. But man, Amy Lee still sounds phenomenal. It's I wouldn't even call this, I think online they listed it as new metal and alt metal, and I wouldn't call this metal at all. It's more of a hard rock with just her really cool vocals over the top of it. Again, it's not something I'll really listen to again, but I think my daughter's really going to enjoy it. And then last but not least, I'm glad that I was able to get a hold of a copy of this before the prices shot up. I bought it direct, so, I paid, what was it, $34 or whatever, maybe 36 shipped. But this is the Mobile Fidelity pressing of Iron Maiden, and it got a Vita. It sounds phenomenal. Really great pressing. Do I have it here? There we go. I've got an early pressing. I think this was from the mid 70s. But this is the pressing I had. And I had an original pressing before this that was kind of rough. I kept this one because I thought this one sounded a lot better. This blows out of the water. That being said, I don't think it's ever been a good sounding or really good sounding record, period. The original master just, I've never thought it sounded that good. So they definitely cleaned it up. There's definitely a lot of separation in the instruments. The vocals sound really nice, and the bass line sounds really good. Um, I wouldn't. I think these are selling for $80 and up now. I definitely wouldn't pay that for it. It doesn't sound that good, but if you run across it in a store and they still have it priced new, I would definitely grab it. This is one that they limited to 3,000, so these sold out pretty quick. And about a month ago, a few more popped up on the MoFi website, and I was lucky enough to grab one. So MoFi's been insane lately. Actually, just audiophile pressings in general. I don't know if because because of the pandemic, people are spending more time at home and they just want the nicer pressings. But I really like the Analog Productions albums that have been coming out. They just did The Doors, and it's literally the best sounding. Yeah, here's one right here. This is the Analog Productions of Strange Days. Man, this is the best sounding record I have ever heard. It sounds like it's surrounding you. It's amazing. It's definitely. I've never thought that the 45 RPM thing was worth the money until I started getting some of these Analog Productions, and they're amazing. They're amazing. They are definitely worth the money. I think High Rant District just did a rant about the audiophile pressings. And while I agree with them to some extent, you should definitely upgrade your stereo system before you start messing with audiophile pressings. But man, especially for the jazz, some of the jazz stuff that I've gotten on Mobile Fidelity, but especially on Analog Productions, is absolutely amazing. And I highly recommend checking that stuff out. Number one, if you have the money, and like I said, if your stereo system's built up. Now he mentioned the Dire Straits. He thought it was crazy that all these people were spending that kind of $50 a record for some Dire Straits albums, and I don't necessarily disagree with that. I did buy the first one because I love their first album. I don't really like any of the rest of the albums that they released. They have some songs here and there, but going back to this though, like I said, if you find it for ticket price, under $40, I would say it's worth it. Anything over that, if you're an investor, that's something different. I mean, that's one thing I'll say about the MoFi pressings and the Analog Productions pressings. Once they go out of print, the prices skyrocket. And that was happening, 5 years ago. That was happening 10 years ago. That was happening in the 90s. The MoFi stuff and the Analog Production stuff, Music Matters. What else? Who else is out there? There's a few labels like that. If you're a collector of those for the because you want to make money on them in the future, they're definitely there for that too. But I kind of stick to what I want. I'm not the kind of guy that buys every MoFi pressing that comes out, or every Analog Productions pressing that comes out. But I do really like the audiophile pressing. So that's it, guys. I hope everybody's good. Take care. Stay safe. Subscribe. I'll see you soon.